Hello everyone, I think welcome to another episode of speaking to the top global marketing leaders from across the world. And I'm streaming in from New York, just right above the Times Square below us, in front of Marcus. So it's just a pleasure over here. Today, we're delighted to have Steve Kearns. Steve is the global head of content for LinkedIn Ads, one of the largest businesses of LinkedIn. Usually I've seen like the last 2-3 annual reports, it's been a toppling business, one of the largest or the second largest business of LinkedIn particularly. But Steve, it's just a pleasure to have you over here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always nice to take a step back from what you do on the day-to-day to actually, join you and talk about it.
No, I think it's just raining heavily outside over here today in New York, unexpectedly in this time. And Steve is able to make it to the studio. Thank you so much for that. I think, Steve, first of all, let me tell you about my journey with LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I think that would be interesting for you. So I've been cursed for the fact that I use LinkedIn more than my Instagram. Basically, I think that's a I don't know if that's a good or a bad take on it.
Hey, I think we think it's a good thing.
Of course, you can think that. But I've been like a power user of LinkedIn, particularly on both your recruitment solutions as well as your sales solutions. I'm sorry, but not the ad solutions
That's
yet.
Right.
But of course, it's LinkedIn at the end of it. We're gonna definitely move on the ad solutions as well. But I think LinkedIn as a platform has become more than a need, more than a. It's a want than a need now, basically. And when I say it's a want than a need, I think you just cannot survive as companies, as businesses operating, especially the B2B businesses, to an extent even B2C businesses now, because the purchasing power lies on people who are on LinkedIn at the end of it, the professionals.
Absolutely.
It is a platform that's just taken up massively, right? And I mean, $26 billion acquisition by Microsoft, I all-time realize why it's worth it in this case. So it's going to be very fun. What we can do is we can start knowing you better, Steve, first of all. So let's know Steve as a person. We'd love to get a sense about where do you grow up? How did you kind of eventually land up into marketing? Guys, for reference, Steve has had an exciting career. I spoke much about LinkedIn, less about him. I'll want him to speak about that. But he has moved from the likes of entertainment, PR, Hollywood, to the boring side of the B2B world. Maybe I don't call it boring anymore, but he has had
the
two
exciting
exciting world of a B2B. He has two contrasting skill sets where storytelling, right brain, creativity on one side, to the analytics, data, demand generation, the left brain of things on the other side. I think both of them married together. Steve, would be lovely to kind of know you better. So let's go ahead with you.
Absolutely. So thank you again for having me. It's such a privilege to be able to kind of share my story and how I got to LinkedIn and what makes me who I am and what I care about and how that relates to my job. So just grateful for the opportunity and excited for the chat. So, a little bit more about me. I was born in the great state of New Jersey, right across the river from here in New York City. And
Jersey City?
Yes, actually a little bit farther out. So, the common misconception about New Jersey is that it's all like freeways and airports and concrete, and there's actually quite a lot of farmland and beautiful open spaces in New Jersey, and that's kind of closer to where I'm from, so we're a little bit more rural and bucolic, if you will. But was born in New Jersey. My family are kind of born and bred New Yorkers, so I was kind of the odd one out who grew up in New Jersey, and ended up moving for high school or secondary school to Los Angeles. So very big change from growing up in suburban, if not rural, New Jersey, all the way to smack dab in the middle of a city in LA. So definitely a little bit of a culture shock. I remember my first couple of social interactions in LA. My dad would give me like $20 to go out for dinner with friends, and I would come back being like, I actually need more because dinner is more expensive here in LA than it was in New Jersey, which makes sense. But we, that kind of bleeds into how I got into marketing. So, going to high school in Los Angeles, I always liked to sing and act. So I was, active in the performing arts, and
what did you sing or act?
Both. Better singer than I am an actor, and I'm a terrible dancer. So that is why I cannot ever be on Broadway here in New York. But I would have loved to be, but I have like two left feet, as they say. But, I was really focused on, acting and singing, and ended up just by chance doing ticket sales and promotion for one of my, shows that I was in high school. And that kind of like set something off for me of, oh, well, in addition to, this singing thing and this acting thing, I can write. I like to write. I know how to tell stories. I know how to tell stories in a way that will make people want to do something as a next action. And that's kind of what kicked off my desire to be in sort of this marketing and PR space. Is they said, hey, this is something that I can do for a field that I love. And still be adjacent to that world, but apply another skill set I have to this world. So that is how I ended up applying for the public relations program at the University of Southern California, where I went to undergrad.
Super.
And what was cool about that program is it was very professionally oriented. So I would actually take classes at night.
Okay.
Which is not typical for university. You would take like classes in the humanities and in the arts.
Was it a common thing for there?
Yes, it was a very common thing, specifically for USC, because their whole shtick, if you will, was that they wanted to prepare students for careers.
That's great.
So, it was great in that sense. I would take classes at night, and then I would actually intern and work during the day. So, from like 17, 18 years old, I was able to start getting my footing in this world of public relations and marketing, such that I was able to hit the ground running once I graduated from university. So during university, I was actually in, because I thought I wanted to work in the entertainment space. Everyone I knew worked in entertainment. Like, you live in LA, that defines your worldview. I was able to, work at, across film, television, and music. So, worked at the House of Blues in LA doing show marketing, which is a big part of Live Nation and Ticketmaster. So, got to see like all of these cool artists and do the promotion, ticket sales, and, field marketing for that. Worked at Sony Pictures Entertainment, doing, red carpet events and premieres for their motion picture group. And also had a stint at Nickelodeon where I, worked on actually kind of like ad performance and ad ops, if you will. So got to see a lot of different sides of what someone with my skill set could do, which was something that I thought was going to be the rest of my career. I thought I was going to be a studio head one day at a film studio. And look, who's to say I won't be one day? But I always thought that entertainment was the path. And lo and behold, one day on LinkedIn, I got an in-mail message from a recruiter who was recruiting for a program for early and career professionals at LinkedIn. And I remember getting the message and thinking to myself, I was like, this is strange. Like, I don't know anything about Silicon Valley. I was a power user of LinkedIn at the time, just like you. So I remember, at the time it was, hey, you need to get to 500 connections so you could have 500 plus connections on LinkedIn. So I'd spend like my lunch break just browsing through LinkedIn and adding people I know and building this network, which, must have triggered the back end on LinkedIn Recruiter to say, hey, this is someone you want to talk to. That's how they found me. And
is that true? That's how they found you?
Yeah, via LinkedIn Recruiter, via an in-mail message. So I took the bait. I interviewed at LinkedIn, and through that interview panel, like meeting folks, networking, I didn't actually end up getting the first opportunity that I had interviewed with at LinkedIn. But what it did is it opened up a world of, hey, I can work in Silicon Valley. I can apply the same skill set that I applied to my roles in entertainment to this world of LinkedIn, and ended up being one of our first social media managers at the company, and it's kind of been growing and scaling ever since. So it's been an incredible privilege to like find myself here now. Definitely not where I thought I was going to be after 8 years at LinkedIn, but very grateful for the journey.
No, that is super cool and very inspiring a story. I think you've been setting the foot right from the beginning. So I think all the guardrails set across just made like a ground for you to jump into, right? But would love to get a sense around how was that contrasting journey from being in the glamorous entertainment PR Hollywood side of the world. I don't know if it's great paymaster still, but people, there are a lot of questions about it. But on that side, which is a much more glamorous, high hustle job, to coming to this side of the world, which is more strategic, which is a direct impact on business that you are able to see immediately. and also into a more corporate career, particularly, right? You've seen both sides of the career, right? So I think we'd love to get a deeper sense into, one, how was the cultural shift for you, and second, how was also the day-to-day work life? What learnings did you need to have when you moved to LinkedIn immediately? Because I think before that, on the PR side, it was more creativity. Let's write the most fabulous piece of content. Now I think it's just not that. It's a lot more things around it. So I'd love to get a sense
absolutely. So one of the things that kind of sparked my interest in Silicon Valley, and this was back in like 2014, 2015, kind of the golden age of tech, if you will. IPOs going crazy and people making all this money. And, San Francisco was kind of this like gilded city where, everyone would go if they wanted to strike it rich in the tech world. Something that I saw when I was working at the film studio at Sony Pictures was that the major players in the content space were actually starting to become tech companies. They they were no longer the traditional legacy media companies of, our parents' generation. And, we would sit there every day and we would watch companies like Netflix, originally a tech company, not necessarily, well, actually technically like a DVD delivery company, so there's a supply chain component there too. But a now streaming company where there's tech infrastructure behind this, eat our lunch. So, we were looking at platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
The social media effect.
Yeah, exactly. Social media platforms now being the main source of where people consume content. So I was watching that shift slowly start to happen, and I was watching more and more people who had my skill set, really leave the traditional and legacy media world and go into this tech world where, I think the tech companies kind of got smart, and they realized, they were like, well, in order to incentivize our own growth and to continue to have folks to keep coming back to our platforms, they're going to need to consume media. They're going to need to consume content on those platforms. So why don't we get into the business of content? So if you think about, every tech company out there now really has especially the legacy, large ones, has a content arm. So it was the transition to your question was not as jarring as you would think it is, because I was able to take my skill set from the entertainment world, which was how do I craft a compelling story that from the consumer lens, people want to watch, they want to consume, they want to listen to, whatever that medium is going to be, and bring that to an organization that had money, which is the beauty of the 2010s in the tech economy, and was growing. So, and by the way, when you think about end-to-end distribution, we had a built-in distribution model through our own platform that we could use as kind of our flagship property, if you will. So the transition was exciting because my skill set, whereas in the entertainment world is very common, at a company like LinkedIn was actually quite unique. So I was able to say, hey, as a very, very young person early in career, bring in a perspective that people actually listened to. And that was one of the cool things too about working in technology in that day and age is that, what did I see young people doing at LinkedIn? I saw them leading meetings. I saw them giving their perspective. I saw them, sharing and adding value. What did I see people doing in the entertainment world? I saw them answering phones. You had to answer phones or be someone's assistant. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's, grace and dignity in every type of work. But for someone with my background, I wanted to hit the ground running, and I wanted to make calls, and I wanted to make content. And LinkedIn just provided an incredible opportunity for that, with the backdrop of growth that we've experienced as a platform, which is, I always give people advice in their career to say, if you want to accelerate your career, find a company that's growing. Find something that is growing and scaling, and you will be
you'll scale
good.
with it.
Exactly.
No, that's very well articulated, I could say, in that case, Steve. I mean, you just said the core difference is that cultural difference that you just mentioned, right? I want to go deeper into also understanding more about how was it learning the entire data mapping, data-driven strategy at LinkedIn, because in the entertainment world, what I still feel what lacks is the approach of how data is used on day-to-day basis, and it's still not the best of it. Still in that case, when I'm comparing the tech side of the world, basically, right? if you were to kind of go to LinkedIn, right, and when you join until today, and I would love to understand, you guys have insane amount of data. You literally have PII of every professional in the world.
World's largest professional data set. Yep.
The second piece is you also have consumption patterns, what a social media company has. You also have preference patterns, economic patterns of people, who is looking for what job at that, what pay grade in that case, how many switches, who needs how much of money in their life right away, later, who is related to whom, who is friends with whom, who is commenting on whose post, who is commenting what on whose post. You guys sit on like a universe, a parallel universe of data, right? How do you use that when you start creating content? And if you're not using it, probably, I mean, it would be the most foolish thing, but I'm pretty sure you're using it in this case. So I'd love to get a sense.
You know, it's interesting. When I first came into LinkedIn, to your earlier question about B2B and sort of this data-driven world that I think B2B is often associated with, one of the things that was really valuable to learn when I got into LinkedIn, and I think this comes with that world of B2B marketing and the background that a lot of B2B marketers bring, which is more in that performance marketing space, is that marketing and creativity can be a tool for business growth, and should be a tool for business growth. So it's that shift in mindset from, hey, this is just something that people are going to say like ooh and ah to and consume and love, but something that actually can serve a number of different use cases across the marketing funnel, whether that is an awareness play or whether that is something that's actually going to help convert, which pieces of content can very easily do to generate leads for a business that sales can help to call on. So it was that orientation that I think is so well so well coded into the DNA of every B2B marketer that was helpful to add to my repertoire as I, grew my career at LinkedIn, was to understand that what I do is not just like draw pretty pictures and write pretty words, but to what end, to what goal.
Means to an end, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, to think about how we use sort of those data and insights at LinkedIn, to your exact point, Krishan, we have a massive amount of data, professional data, and our data set looks at talent flows. We have engagement data, we have skills data that can really map the global economy, map the trends that we're seeing, hiring trends, workforce trends, skills trends, content consumption trends, all of it. It's a massive trove of information. And to LinkedIn's credit, I don't get to see that much of it because we're very, very stringent about how we protect our members and our customers' privacy for good reason. But from a content creation perspective, we are able to pull in both behavioral and sentiment data from LinkedIn to do two things. Number one, understand what types of content we should create at what altitude. And that really goes back to content consumption trends that we can look at. What are people reacting to the most? What gets the most, rich comments? Our ultimate goal is to drive more conversation, better conversation, more thoughtful conversation on LinkedIn. So we look to our own data set to understand what types of content will drive that outcome. Makes sense. That kind of is a content performance conversation. There's also a conversation here about how we use our data to inform other marketers or other professionals. So, almost being forthcoming about what is going on LinkedIn with the intent of inspiring and educating our audiences. So looking at things like, hey, what is the state of the job market? The primary audience that I serve are marketing audiences. What is the state of the job market for marketers as told by LinkedIn data? What is the incidence of remote jobs for marketing professionals on LinkedIn now versus 2 years ago versus 5 years ago? What does that trend look like over time? And what does that suggest about where the profession is heading? So there is I would say, responsible way
we can basically figure out the talk of the towns in some sense.
Exactly. So understanding what those trends are doing on platform and then sharing that back with our audiences so that they can make more informed decisions. And I think that is a great way to responsibly use the data that our members and our customers entrust to us at LinkedIn is by saying, hey, this is what we can glean from this information to help you do a better job, to help you grow in your career, to help you be a better marketer, sales professional, HR professional, L&D professional, what have you.
That is super cool. Thanks for this. I'm really liking the way you're articulating the answers. So looks like a content person on the other side. I'd also want to dive deeper into the entire LinkedIn collective journey.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the highlights of the work that you've done at LinkedIn, and you've been a very integral part of building that up, right?
Yeah.
For the audiences, first, would lovely to just know what is LinkedIn collective as a whole, and the journey of building it to how do you foresee it ahead?
Yeah, absolutely.
Case.
So LinkedIn,
that's your platform.
Yeah.
So there you go.
LinkedIn Collective is our marquee thought leadership platform for marketing professionals on LinkedIn. So if I think about our content strategy for our advertising business at LinkedIn, which is the business that my team creates content for, I mentioned this phrasing a little bit earlier, but one goal of ours is to inspire and the other is to educate. And if you kind of divide those along two lines, inspire dovetails into a thought leadership use case or thought leadership content. Educate really, kind of goes into this service-oriented world of how do we educate users on how to better leverage LinkedIn.
Right.
And that's a very, broad application there. But with that, LinkedIn Collective really helps us solve for the inspire use case. So when we were in the pitch room for LinkedIn Collective, we said, hey, LinkedIn really is kind of a global, a global square, if you will, for professionals. So folks come to LinkedIn to give and get help. They come to LinkedIn to share their knowledge, to get in touch with new opportunities to grow their business. So much of what goes on the platform is, we wanted to be reflected in LinkedIn Collective. So we said, why don't we create a space for the marketing community, specifically the B2B marketing community, to discuss the topics of the day that are on their minds.
Right.
So thinking about a CMO or a head of marketing or a VP of marketing or even a chief resource officer, even a CEO if their particular orientation is in the marketing world. What is on their mind? What challenges them most? What keeps them up at night? What are they most excited about? And we wanted to pull people in from the LinkedIn community, if you will, to share those perspectives and share those perspectives with our audience. And the business goal from LinkedIn's perspective was to make sure that LinkedIn was that connector and that connecting piece, because that's what we do as a platform. It's a part of our mission and vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. How that actually translates into what it is we do as a, platform that sells ads, to, put it kind of not eloquently, is bring together marketing leaders to share these perspectives. So we just wanted to make sure that we used LinkedIn's platform to hand the megaphone or the microphone, if you will, over to the influential marketing leaders of today and tomorrow to be able to share those perspectives via in-person video interviews, podcasts, through panels and keynotes at industry events, long-form, bylines that would publish on LinkedIn. And
this is like mix of PGC and UGC both?
Exactly. Yep.
It's both.
Exactly. So it's we wanted to make sure that we were not the only voice in the room shouting from the mountaintops about what it is we thought was important. Now, of course, there is ample room for a brand like LinkedIn, considering all of the data that we have access to share a perspective that's, valuable, informed, what have you.
Right.
But, you don't want to be the, only, you don't want to be the person of the party always talking about yourself.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we bring in other voices who are quite, credible, influential to help tell that story of where do we see the marketing profession going in, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, 5 decades, if you will.
That is good. No, that is super cool. I want to pick your brains up on the room and based in the room.
Yeah.
It's AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's taken the world by a storm by offshoots of your parent company now in that case. So you guys definitely have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't think LinkedIn as a company ever has to go into the fact of how do we use AI. I think that you're much beyond that, right? But I want to focus specifically on knowing Steve as a thought leader in AI, right? And this is your personal perspective, Steve, altogether on how have you been able to integrate the uses of generative AI into your content domains right now. And also, how have you been seeing B2B marketers using it parallelly to run content on your ads platform?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I can tell you 100% when people come to Pepper, especially the B2B side of the world, they would ask us, hey, can we create 10,000 ad copies
that
we want to run on LinkedIn for different cohorts of audiences?
Yep.
Because ads get fatigued in a span of like 15-20 days. We want to kind of refresh them, nudge them again.
Yep.
And then sometimes I feel like, hey, I don't need a writer for this. Maybe a human is okay. Maybe an AI is okay. But then I need a human to edit it. So that AI plus human approach also that you were speaking just before this interview right away. Love to get perspectives from you personally.
Yeah, of course. So it's it's interesting. I was at an internal conference last week where one of our really, really kind of smart thought leaders within the company was talking about this dichotomy of are you scared of AI or are you excited about AI and optimistic about AI? And I think a lot of people's initial reaction is, they can be quite off-put or scared by the fact that, AI is such a powerful assistant or agent that will help, assist us in our own creativity, if you will. I remember the first time I used any sort of AI technology, generative AI technology specifically for writing. I was amazed at, what could be written in 5 to 10, maybe 30 to 90 seconds based on sort of a number of different inputs that I gave the AI model. Whereas that would have taken me 30 minutes, an hour, longer than an hour. And the content was really interesting and pretty accurate too. So I remember my first wide-eyed moment with AI. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm a writer. What is this going to mean for
my job gone?
Yeah, like career process. Oh gosh, like let's not let the CFO see this because this is scary. But over time, as I've gotten to become more comfortable with AI technologies and tools, whether it's at work, personal writing, what have you, what's become more and more apparent to me is this idea that I look at AI as something that can help a content marketer or a marketer or a B2B marketing team really focus their efforts on what their human talent can do best, which is building relationship capital, is having conversations like these, being thought partners to other folks across the business, thinking of new creative ideas, tapping into global, trends on social media to understand how you can pull that into your own industry and make it resonant for your specific audience or ICP. All of those are things that human beings are, inherently good at. It's that creativity, it's that ingenuity that we actually, in a lot of roles, don't have time to fully actualize or fully embrace. So, if I am not spending 6 hours of my day creating 10,000 variants of ad copy, what else can I be doing? Can I be in a pitch meeting? Can I be having an intelligent conversation like this where, I leave feeling inspired and actually want to go create more or create differently? And that's where I'm at in my personal journey with AI. It's where my team is at in our journey with AI as well, is, we're looking at it as a way to build new skills. How do we work with technology platforms and with AI to help augment our skill sets and free up time for us for more, human-centered activities? And, using that as an opportunity to differentiate ourselves professionally too, because, just as SEO and figuring out how to work with, search platforms like Google from a content marketing perspective was the skill you needed to build 10 years ago, 15 years ago, as search became a huge way to drive demand for businesses. AI is going to be just the same.
Yeah.
So, looking at how you work with technology to achieve outcomes, and there's so much upside to what we can achieve when some of those more mundane tasks or lower value, lower skill, whatever you want to call it, tasks can actually be optimized with the help of AI.
Super cool. I mean, I was just trying to articulate this well, and if I were to put it this way, you do what you're best at.
Yep.
Is the logic that AI is trying to kind of move towards. But another interesting facet to your job, right? And in LinkedIn, you've spent almost 8 odd years at LinkedIn now, so I can definitely ask you a lot of questions about
absolutely.
it. Although I'm a person who is also equally on the right brain of things, so I would love to also know the Sony stints and everything. But I think I want to ask one more question on this bit, and then probably we can move to the last leg of the conversation.
Sure.
But you as a company, because you're leading content globally for LinkedIn ads, you guys are operating multiple geographies. With markets like Brazil, Germany, India being primary growth markets for you guys. And I got to know that you were telling me this, that you guys are actually growing faster outside America than America particularly. Would love to understand what it takes to manage the cultural and diverse nuances of regional of regional parameters, like things like language, things like SEO keyword searches, things like how much do they like in a market like India. I come from there, right? So in India, you can definitely kind of see people will go leaps and bounds outside their lives to make their work happen. But that's not the same in Europe. Right? Europe, it's a very balanced life, basically. America lies
very
somewhere
different
in the
value
middle.
system.
Very different value system, right? Okay, that's the right word for it. The value systems, right? How do you also take these cultural nuances, value systems, language barriers, SEO search patterns across the board, and still being here, try to create that content globally for individual markets, because they're all primary markets for your business coming from there?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And it's, I think the age-old question of anyone who does a content marketing or content creation role globally is, how do you make things resonant when, you're actually solving for people with very different challenges, very different ways of looking at the world, different languages, what have you. And, I don't know that I have the right answer, but I can certainly share a perspective on how we think about it. So, there is content that's meant to be broadly applicable, and then there's content that's meant to be really specific and targeted. So when I think about the content that's broadly applicable, it's conversations around, the global trends. So what is happening globally with the marketing profession that would be resonant to, anyone in any market? If we need to get more specific than that, that is where we have to kind of put our, international hats on, if you will, to understand the context that we're playing into. So a lot of it starts with understanding the factors that we just discussed. So number one, what language do the people that we're trying to reach speak? Are they proficient enough in English will content in English resonate enough with them such that we can produce it in English, which, is our primary strength? Or do we need to look at something like content localization? Now, of course, if you're thinking about localization, and you have an American writing the content with an American mindset for an American company, that might not be resonant in another language. Like you might miss all of the nuance because the maturity of someone's business in a different market may be very different. What their challenges are may be very different. The amount of money they have access to may be very different. And to your point, the value system may be very different around what would motivate someone to take that next step, or what should your call to action be. So what we try to do is yield the floor as much as possible and work with local marketers. We're very fortunate that we have marketers all around the world at LinkedIn who we can consult on matters like this and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this campaign, or specifically, we just hosted an event in India, actually, in Bangalore. And my team was in charge of creating the content for the event. We made sure that we partnered very closely with the team in market to understand, is this going to make sense? Is this going to land properly? Or are we going to look like a bunch of, ill-informed Americans who, took a flight halfway across the world and imposed what we thought would be resonant on another market? So it is solving for both the global challenge, because there are things that will be globally relevant to everyone. I mean, you think about motion pictures. Like, there are like visceral human storylines and motivations and desires that are going to translate across every market. And that's where I think like your out-of-home advertising can play. That's where, broad content campaigns can play, or research or something like that. And then from a localized perspective, looking at maybe more micro campaigns, if you will, or targeted campaigns, which are going to say, hey, here's a blog post that specifically is targeted to a marketer in India who has, X, Y, and Z challenges. And from there, I think that's how you can start to thread the needle to make sure that you're not missing, you're not, what's the word? you're not going so hyper local that you miss the connective tissue that actually connects your message back to the brand.
Interesting. I do have so many smaller questions on it. When the wake of time, I think I wouldn't shoot them to you. I'll shoot that to you post this.
Hey, another time, right?
But I think, very interestingly, you lie at a cusp where you've been in the storytelling side of the world, then you move to this entire B2B side of the world. You've got nuances of both sides together.
Yeah.
That is very apt in the answers also that you spoke of, right? So I think thanks for doing that. Lovely speaking to you. Okay, I think we'll move to the last leg of the conversation. This is...
Okay, Sean, thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Yeah, I think this last leg of the conversation is what's going to make this podcast particularly, or the video cast particularly interesting, because that's what I own. So we're going to now know Steve as a car singer, like you said, right?
Yes.
Rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot them to you. 6 seconds to answer.
Okay. Ooh.
Whatever you get on top of your mind, just shoot them out.
Okay, right? Amazing.
Okay, perfect. What do you spend more time on, the LinkedIn feed or the LinkedIn inbox?
LinkedIn feed.
LinkedIn feed. 3 tabs that are always open on your laptop.
Gmail, Yahoo News, Outlook.
Why Yahoo News though? I want to record.
I'm kind of a Luddite, technologically speaking, which is funny because I work at LinkedIn, but my friends make fun of me all the time for this. They're like, Steve, why do you use Yahoo News? I think it's something I started using like 15 years ago to stay informed, and never shaken the habit.
It's always
always on. I always check Yahoo News as one of the first things I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
We can send that to the team at Yahoo. I'm sure they'll love that. They're like, someone's still using us.
Interesting. What's a comfort food?
Oh, comfort food. Pasta.
Pasta?
Mm-hmm.
You like Italian?
Oh, yes. I'm Italian, so I grew up eating a lot of pasta, and
it's still the comfort food.
Yeah, it's always like the default for me. But I'll add noodles to that as well, because I feel like any type of noodle I
You can
love.
like that. Yeah. That's super good. East Coast versus West Coast?
East Coast.
Say someone who's grown up in LA.
Yeah, I think it's just more, my whole family's from New York City. I think it's the whole pace of life here. Do
you feel sleepy when you go to the West Coast?
Yeah, the West Coast is lovely, but I think, here on the East Coast we grab life by the horns.
Yeah,
and, we hold on. It's there's a little bit of gumption here in New York City, and it's just wonderful to be around.
Yeah, super. Okay. Humble brag.
Humble brag. I'm a pretty good singer. I used to sing a lot, high school, college, and always wonder what my life would have been like had I pursued singing as a career.
Interesting. If you were to do any other role at LinkedIn, apart from the content role, what would that be?
Ooh. I was like, can I say CMO? No, I think
not marketing. I mean, if not marketing,
I'd actually say a role in product. So that is something that is a world that is so far from what my natural skill set is. And if you want to be in marketing leadership or business leadership, if you will, you need to understand the things that kind of the things that you're selling. I can sell, I can market, anything in that space, but understanding how to build a product, how it works, how to work with engineers, who have a very different skill set than my own, that would be something that would be super interesting.
If you were to get the same amount of money to do a role of being a marketing leader at LinkedIn versus to write a screenplay, what would you do?
Ooh. I think I'd have to pick the screenplay just because it's kind of the great unknown. I know how the story goes at LinkedIn, and it's a wonderful story, but I would love to write a screenplay. That'd be very cool.
That's super good, right? Favorite holiday destination?
Ooh, holiday destination. I really like Capri in Italy. So island right off the Amalfi Coast. It's
are you from somewhere close over there?
My family is from southern Italy, so maybe there's like a deep ancestral tie of like this is where I belong and this is where I want to be. I wish I could speak Italian, but
you cannot speak that.
No, I wish I could. Several generations back, so it's
LinkedIn needs to have a Italy team now.
We've got an office in Milan.
Oh, you do?
I was like, I need an office in on the Amalfi Coast where I can, sit by the sea and do my writing there,
Okay, last two. Favorite sport?
Favorite sport. Okay, there's a recency bias here, but tennis.
Tennis?
So I recently went to the
US
US Open. Oh
I
my
was
gosh,
there as well.
so much fun. I was like, this is so cool. I mean, it might, the honeydew drinks might have had something to do with it, but I am now a tennis fan.
Is it? I mean, that's super good. Last part to it. What is that one thing that you literally think every day before going to sleep?
Every day before going to sleep. Well, first thing that pops into mind is how long will it take me to get to sleep? Because I'm a terrible sleeper.
That's good.
I'm like, oh God. I was like, did I take the right amount of melatonin? But, also just like, I think
what
wondering.
keeps you awake?
Yeah.
I mean, I would ask you that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just wondering if everything's gonna work out. Like, it's crazy to say that, like, sitting in this chair, you have to be you have to have done something right to be able to have a conversation like this. But if this is at all humanizing, like, I sit there and go to bed, will everything work out? Will everything I want to achieve materialize? Because, I'm running like hell to make sure that it does. So it's that definitely keeps me up at night.
That is super inspiring, first of all, Steve. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
And I think it's been a fabulous conversation. You've been an awesome guest. So
thank you so much.
So really appreciate it. But we've had a fantastic episode. Thank you everyone for streaming in as well.